Let's have a look at the calculation of distance or length, which is an important skill to develop for the MAPWORK section of geography. Before we continue, it is important to know that if you have found a method that works for you, or your teacher has shown you something or shown you a method that does work, then by all means stick to it. However, if you are interested in finding an alternative, or if you're still struggling to calculate distance, then hopefully this video will help you. I like to take my students through 3 steps in order to get to your final answer. The first step would be to start off by measuring the distance on the map. The second question you're going to ask yourself is to establish the scale of the map that you're working with. And finally, before the actual calculation happens, you need to ask yourself in which units the answer should be written. So, number 1, measure the distance on the map in centimeters. Number 2, establish what the scale of the map is, and that can be either 1:50,000 or it can be the 1:10,000 scale. And then lastly, establish in which units the answer needs to be. In other words, must the answer be in meters or should the answer be written in kilometers? Let's have a look at example number 1. Example number 1 says to calculate the distance in meters between points A and point B. Let's assume that points A and point B are found on a 1:50,000 topographic map. First thing would be to measure the distance between points A and B on the map in centimeters. In our example, I've used 6 centimeters as my map measurement. In other words, in our example, the distance between A and B, or the length of line AB, is 6 centimeters. And I'm using 6 centimeters as an example. The next step would be to establish which map scale I'm working with. In this instance, I'm working with a 1:50,000 map. So I'm going to go up here, 1:50,000 map scale. The third question to ask is which unit should the answer be in. In this instance, the answer needs to be in meters. So I've measured on the map. I've established that I'm working with a 1:50,000 map, and because my answer needs to be in meters, I'm going to multiply by 500 in order to get a final answer. So 6 centimeters measured on the map, I multiply by 500 because I'm working with a 1:50,000 scale, and my answer needs to be meters, and therefore 6 centimeters on a 1:50,000 map is equivalent to 3,000 real meters. Map measurement, I'm multiplying by 500 because the scale is 1:50,000 and my answer needs to be in meters, and my final answer in this example is therefore 3,000 meters. Just important to note that especially at the end of grade 12 in the final examinations, during the marking process, your units have to be included in your answer. For example, if you simply wrote 6 as an answer, you would lose the mark. However, if you wrote your map measurements as 6 centimeters, you would immediately be given 1 mark for that. And then your final answer, it's best to write it as 3,000 meters. However, there might be a concession if you only wrote 3,000 because the meters is given there. However, to be completely on the safe side, I would include the units there as well. So let's have a look at our second and last example. Just apologies, that should read example number 2. Calculate the distance in kilometers between C and D. Again, the important thing here to take note of is that I need to be doing the distance calculation. I'm trying to find the distance between point C and D, or the length of line C and D on the 1:10,000 orthophoto map in this instance. As an example, I'm going to measure CD and I've used 14 centimeters as an example. That 14 centimeters would be the first step that you need to complete, where the measurement on the map is taken as in centimeters. Second question, the type of scale. In this instance, we are working with the 1:10,000 scale. The answer needs to be in kilometers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure my distance on the map. I'm going to multiply it with 0.1, and that will then produce an answer of 1.4 kilometers. So map distance of 14 centimeters. I'm multiplying by 0.1 because I'm working on the 1:10,000 map, and my answer needs to be in kilometers. And in this instance, I end up with 1,400 with 1.4 kilometers. In summary, if we look at the 1:50,000, when I want my answer to be in meters, I'm going to multiply by 500. If I'm working with a 1:10,000 scale, if I want my answer to be in meters, I'm going to multiply by 100. In the instance where my answer needs to be in kilometers and kilometers, you will notice in both instances, I'm going to multiply with a decimal. On the 1:50,000 map, for kilometers, multiply by 0.5, and on the 1:10,000 map, I multiply by 0.1 in order to obtain an answer in kilometers.